A wealthy female CEO pulls up to a gas station in her luxury Mercedes, mocking a hardworking black mechanic with the cruelest words imaginable. She throws her car keys at him and laughs, saying, "Fix this engine and I'll marry you," never expecting what would happen next. By the end of this story, that same CEO would be begging for forgiveness, her entire world turned upside down by the very man she tried to humiliate. Stay with me because this revenge story will blow your mind. Before we dive in, please hit that subscribe button. It truly means the world to me when you subscribe to Oyen Stories. Turn on those notifications so you never miss our incredible underdog triumph stories. And drop your city in the comments below. I love connecting with viewers from all over America. Damon Williams wiped the grease from his weathered hands as the gleaming silver Mercedes-Benz pulled into Rodriguez Auto Repair. The morning sun caught the luxury car's chrome details, making them sparkle like diamonds. Behind the wheel sat Rebecca Harrison, CEO of Harrison Financial Group, one of the most powerful investment companies on the East Coast. Rebecca stepped out of her vehicle with the confidence of someone who owned the world. Her designer heels clicked against the cracked concrete like a judge's gavel. She wore an expensive navy business suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month, and her diamond earrings caught the light with every movement of her perfectly styled blonde hair. She surveyed the modest auto repair shop with obvious disgust, her nose wrinkling as if she smelled something foul. The shop was clean and organized, but it was clearly a working-class establishment. Oil stains marked the concrete floor, and the walls were lined with used tires and automotive equipment that had seen better days. "Excuse me," she called out in a voice that dripped with entitled arrogance. "I need someone actually competent to look at my car. Where's the real mechanic? Surely there's someone here who actually knows what they're doing." Damon approached her with the respect he showed all customers, despite the obvious condescension in her tone. "Good morning, ma'am. I'm Damon Williams, the head mechanic and owner of this shop. How can I help you today?" Rebecca's perfectly manicured eyebrows shot up in surprise, and then she let out a laugh that sounded more like a bark. "You're the head mechanic? Really?" She looked him up and down like he was something she might scrape off her shoe. "I specifically asked for someone competent, someone who actually knows German engineering." Damon felt the familiar sting of prejudice pierce through his chest, but he maintained his professional composure. He had dealt with people like Rebecca before, though rarely this openly hostile. "I've been fixing cars for 20 years, ma'am, including luxury German vehicles. I'm ASE certified and have factory training on Mercedes, BMW, and Audi. What seems to be the problem with your car?" "The engine makes this weird rattling noise," Rebecca said dismissively, waving her hand as if swatting away his qualifications. "But honestly, I seriously doubt someone like you could figure it out. This is a German engineering masterpiece worth more than this entire shop, not some beat-up pickup truck from the junkyard." Other customers in the waiting area began to stare at the unfolding scene. An elderly man reading a newspaper lowered it to watch. A young mother holding her toddler shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Rebecca noticed the growing audience and seemed to feed off their attention, her voice growing louder and more theatrical. "Tell you what," she announced, pulling out her car keys with a flourish and throwing them at Damon's feet like scraps to a dog. "If you can actually fix this sophisticated car engine, I'll marry you." She burst into cruel, mocking laughter that echoed off the shop walls. "That's exactly how confident I am that you'll fail miserably." The entire shop fell into uncomfortable silence. Damon felt every pair of eyes on him, some sympathetic, others curious about how he would respond. His assistant Carlos shook his head in disbelief and disgust. The elderly customer muttered something under his breath about shameful behavior, but Damon simply bent down and picked up the keys with quiet dignity, his calloused hands steady despite the humiliation burning in his chest. "I'll take a look at your vehicle, ma'am," he said quietly, his voice betraying none of the anger he felt inside. Damon popped the hood of the Mercedes while Rebecca stood several feet away, making loud business calls on her phone and completely ignoring him. She spoke about stock portfolios, merger deals, and quarterly profits, clearly wanting everyone to know how important and wealthy she was. As Damon examined the engine with his experienced eyes, his 20 years of automotive expertise immediately told him what was wrong. But as he dug deeper into his inspection, he discovered something that made him pause and look more carefully. Interesting, he murmured to himself, pulling out his phone to take photos of specific engine components. "Did you say something?" Rebecca asked impatiently, ending her call with an abrupt, "I'll call you back." She walked over with exaggerated annoyance. "Look, I have extremely important business meetings today with major investors. Just admit you can't fix it so I can take it to a real mechanic at the Mercedes dealership." Damon continued his methodical inspection, ignoring her constant interruptions and condescending comments. What he had discovered made his blood run cold. This wasn't just a simple engine problem that could be fixed with a quick repair. The timing chain was severely damaged, the oil pump was failing, and there were clear signs of previous engine work that had been done poorly. But Damon noticed something else that would change everything, something that made the pieces of a much larger puzzle suddenly fall into place. "Ma'am, before I give you my complete diagnosis, can I ask where you purchased this vehicle?" Damon asked, wiping his hands on a clean rag. Rebecca rolled her eyes dramatically and let out an exasperated sigh. "Why on earth does that matter? I bought it 6 months ago from Harrison Luxury Motors. My company owns the entire dealership chain across 3 states. We specialize in high-end European vehicles. Not that it's any of your business whatsoever." Damon nodded slowly, the pieces of the puzzle clicking together in his mind. He had suspicions, but now he needed to confirm them. "The engine problem is quite serious," Damon explained patiently. "The timing chain is severely damaged, the oil pump is failing, and there's evidence of previous engine work that wasn't done properly. It's going to need major engine reconstruction." "How much?" Rebecca snapped, her patience clearly exhausted. "About $6,000 in parts and labor," Damon replied honestly. Rebecca's face turned bright red with fury. $6,000? That's absolutely highway robbery. You're just trying to scam me because you think I'm some rich woman who doesn't understand cars. This is exactly why I didn't want to bring my car to some backyard mechanic shop." "Actually, ma'am, I'm being completely honest and transparent with you," Damon said calmly, his voice never rising. "But there's something else you really need to know, and it's going to shock you." He walked to his office and returned with a thick folder filled with maintenance records. "I keep detailed records of every single car I work on, including photos and documentation. This exact Mercedes was in my shop 8 months ago with the exact same engine problems." Rebecca's confident expression began to crack like ice under pressure. "Your dealership sold you a car with known, documented engine problems without disclosing them to you," Damon continued, his voice steady and professional. "According to federal and state laws, that constitutes consumer fraud." Rebecca stared at the comprehensive maintenance records in complete disbelief, her hands trembling as she flipped through page after page of documented evidence. This can't possibly be right," she stammered, her usual confidence evaporating like morning mist. "I'm afraid it absolutely is," Damon said, showing her the detailed documentation, photographs, and timestamps. "See this signature right here? That's from your own service manager, Jake Morrison, personally confirming the extensive engine problems. Look at this invoice. They knew exactly what was wrong when they sold this car to you." Rebecca's hands shook as she read through the damning papers. Her own company, the business empire she had built and controlled, had cheated her out of thousands of dollars. The irony was bitter and overwhelming. "But wait," Damon continued, pulling out his smartphone and showing her a local news article. "I looked you up while you were making your important business calls. This article from last month says you just fired 400 workers to increase company profits before Christmas." Rebecca's face went completely pale, the color draining from her cheeks like water from a broken dam. "How was that even relevant to my car?" "Well," Damon said thoughtfully, his voice taking on a subtle edge, "one of those workers you fired was my next-door neighbor, Maria Santos. Single mother of 2 young children, worked faithfully in your accounting department for 12 years. You terminated her employment 3 weeks before Christmas, right after she had to take time off to care for her sick mother." The bitter irony wasn't lost on anyone in the shop. The woman who had mocked Damon for his honest, hard-working profession had been systematically stealing from her own customers and destroying working families for profit. "I can definitely fix your car," Damon announced loudly, making sure every person in the shop could hear him clearly. "After all, you did publicly promise to marry me if I could fix it. That was your exact words, witnessed by everyone here." The other customers began to chuckle and murmur among themselves. Rebecca looked around desperately, realizing she was now the one being publicly humiliated and exposed. "That was obviously just a joke," she protested weakly, her voice cracking with desperation. "Was it really?" Damon asked calmly. "Because my assistant Carlos here recorded the entire conversation on his phone." Carlos held up his smartphone with a satisfied grin, nodding confirmation. Damon opened his professional toolbox with deliberate precision. "Don't worry, I'm a man of integrity and honest business practices, unlike some people in this room. I'll fix your car properly and professionally. But first, we need to have a serious conversation about Maria Santos. She needs her job back immediately with full back pay. I can't just arbitrarily." Rebecca started to protest. "You can and you absolutely will," Damon interrupted firmly, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had found his power. "Because if you don't, this video of you publicly mocking and humiliating a hardworking black mechanic goes viral on every social media platform. And trust me, in today's social climate, that won't be good for Harrison Financial Group stock prices or your company's reputation." Rebecca realized she was completely trapped by her own cruelty, greed, and corporate misconduct. For hours later, Damon closed the hood of the perfectly running Mercedes with a satisfied click. The engine now purred smoothly and powerfully, running better than it had in over a year. He had not only fixed the immediate problems, but had also corrected the shoddy previous work. Rebecca stood nearby, visibly humbled and genuinely ashamed of her earlier behavior. During those 4 long hours, she had watched Damon work with incredible skill, precision, and dedication. She had witnessed him explain every step to curious customers, help an elderly man with his battery, and patiently teach a teenager about basic car maintenance. She had also made several difficult phone calls, including one to personally rehire Maria Santos with a promotion to senior accountant and a substantial raise. "Your car is completely fixed," Damon announced professionally. "The engine runs perfectly now, and I've corrected all the previous mechanical issues. It should give you years of reliable service." Rebecca nodded quietly, her earlier arrogance completely gone. "How much do I owe you for the repair work? For my labor and expertise?" "Nothing at all," Damon said with genuine kindness. "But you'll need to pay for the parts we used, $350. Rebecca was genuinely shocked, her eyes widening in disbelief. "But you said the repair would cost $6,000. Damon smiled warmly. "That's what your dealership would have charged you. Plus, they would have kept you without a car for 2 weeks. I don't believe in overcharging people or taking advantage of their situations, unlike some businesses I'm familiar with." As Rebecca prepared to leave, counting out cash from her expensive purse, she turned back to face Damon one final time. "I owe you a sincere and heartfelt apology," she said softly, her voice filled with genuine remorse. "What I said earlier was completely wrong, cruel, and inexcusable. You're clearly an excellent mechanic and a good person." "Apology accepted," Damon replied graciously, extending his hand for a respectful handshake. "But the real question moving forward is, what are you going to do differently with your business and how you treat people?" Rebecca looked around the honest auto shop, thinking deeply about her own dishonest business practices and the lives she had affected. "I'm going to make significant changes," she promised sincerely. 8 months later, Damon received an official letter on Harrison Financial Group letterhead. The company had implemented comprehensive new ethical guidelines, completely stopped all fraudulent automotive sales practices, and had donated $100,000 to automotive trade schools in underserved communities across the state. The letter was signed by Rebecca Harrison, but it included a handwritten note. "Thank you for teaching me that true success comes from treating all people with respect and honesty, regardless of their profession or background. You fixed much more than just my car that day. You helped me rebuild my character and remember my humanity. Real success isn't measured by wealth, power, or social status, but by how we treat others, especially those we perceive as beneath us. Sometimes the people we look down on are the very ones who can teach us life's most valuable lessons. Damon chose dignity and grace over revenge, and in doing so, he changed not just his own life, but the lives of hundreds of workers who benefited from Rebecca's complete transformation. True strength lies in maintaining your integrity and compassion, even when others don't deserve your kindness.